crossroads of the Ozarks. It's the OGs of podcasting, PID Radio. Welcome. I'm Derek Gilbert.
I'm Sharon Gilbert. Not only are we the OGs, but this show itself is one of the original, at the very least, Christian podcasts ever.
Yeah. We were very early in this game, going all the way back to March of 2005.
I know, it's kind of crazy.
Back in the day, we were ahead of major television network podcasts.
You know, you and I have been ahead of a number of things.
And we've been sinking ever since in the ratings.
That's okay. Well,
sorry, Grace.
Allergies or just the weirdness of whatever's going on?
Yeah, the allergies or the autoimmune thing, one or the other. But does give me radio voice this morning. Yeah.
Well.
From the Ozarks.
Well,
I can hit notes I could never hit before.
Yeah, and why not? And some of them are so low, only the dogs can hear them.
Yeah, and that clearly is what disturbed Grace right there. It's like,
what?
I've got Grace and Glory both here on the couch with me. They were napping until they heard the exciting introduction to the program.
Oh, they love it, and they love being part of the program as well. Well, and since we're in the house, they get to be in here. We still haven't worked for very long in the barn with both of them out there.
Right.
But because the weather's a bit inclement this morning, we decided to stay inside.
Yeah, a lot of rain overnight tonight. It seems like there's a regular pattern here the last 6 weeks or so where every Thursday or Friday storms start blowing up in Texas and Oklahoma and then fire up and cross over here. And, Friday nights are always pretty exciting when it comes to the weather. But a little bit of sunshine popping out right now, but it is kind of wet outside, so we decided to hold off on more barn training until another day.
I think we're boring Glory. She's yawned several times already.
Yeah, and Grace, well, she's happy. That's because I'm rubbing her belly.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us today. Please take
download.
a moment. Yes. Well,
You go ahead.
Please download our app. You'll find it at gilberthouse.org/app or pidradio.com/app. We've got mobile versions for iOS, Android, Amazon, Kindle Fire, and versions for smart TVs, Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, Google TV, Android TV. Go to their app store, look for the Gilbert House app, add it to your smart TV, and all of our video content, which includes Sharon's new podcast, The Armored Sheep, The Bible's Greatest Mysteries, Unraveling Revelation, and the monthly Iron and Myth broadcast.
Ooh, yeah. That has replaced VFTB, which has gone on hiatus for a while.
Right, just trying to scale back the number of hours I work just because, again, whatever's going on, it's got me acting like an old guy. 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm ready for a nap. I could never figure out why Dad was napping on the couches on beautiful Saturday afternoons. Now I know.
Now you know.
Dad had the secret. So anyway, that's how you can get all of our content. And make sure that, and by the way, if you are using YouTube Music to subscribe, God bless you. Share, leave your comments below, and that helps the algorithm to spread the love. But just be advised that there may come a day where we say something that violates community standards, not intentionally.
No, never.
But their standards are moving goalposts.
Well, that's just it. And sometimes older programs might cause a problem. We just don't want to we don't want to lose the opportunity to be in any platform. So thank you for listening to us wherever you are. And if you go to our app, then you will always find us there.
Absolutely. Well, what a week it was.
Well, good grief. I mean, it is never a dull moment when you have Donald Trump in the White House.
No, that is true. It's a story that blew up on Thursday and is now top of the news headlines as everybody's trying to figure out what does the Trump-Musk bromance breakup actually mean.
I think it's either just a misunderstanding because Trump's reaction was very measured. Not at all. I mean, he's used to that. He's a businessman. He's used to people getting mad at him, and then they come back and he wants to, okay, let's work together. He is about building bridges, not burning them. No.
There are some bridges that he's burned, and you can tell when he's completely done with somebody, and that's when he starts referring to them by a nickname or something. like Sleepy Joe, and others that are a little even more unkind than that.
But the alternative is that this might actually be let's pretend.
Yeah.
And
in pro wrestling parlance, that would be called kayfabe.
Well, let me just raise my hand because I've been looking at the news for hours this morning, and as we have said before, that Derek sleeps longer, and I'm all for that. And you know me, I get up at 2 or 3 in the morning anyway, so I've been looking at the news for a while, and there are a number of accounts that are saying that Elon Musk has deleted some of his posts from yesterday and the day before. So it's possible that he's reconsidered. Mm-hmm. But we don't know that for sure. What we do know is that his stock has taken a nosedive.
Yeah, and that's because that big, beautiful bill that's passed the House now and is on to the Senate removes subsidies for electric vehicles.
Yes, but it's being spun by mainstream media and even accounts on X as because...
Morning Dove just hit the window. Gloria's right on it. What was that?
Because, is the bird okay, Glory? Because
it
of
seemed
what
to fly
he
away.
posted.
It didn't drop. So.
Good. We frequently have a lot of birds that are being chased, or for whatever reason usually they're fine, but every once in a while you have to go out and we actually pray over them. Mm-hmm, and the Lord brings them out of their coma or concussion or whatever it is, and they fly away.
Yeah,
so
one was that cardinal that was really...
There was a cardinal that hit the door in the barn one day, and that cardinal hit hard, and I thought he was dead. Yeah. Didn't have a broken neck, but I thought he was dead. And I prayed over him and set him outside in a safe spot, and was happy to see about an hour later that he was gone.
Yeah. No, that was a mourning dove, and they're not the best flyers anyway.
No.
But no, it hit, and it just redirected and flew away. So
June bugs hit the window all the time. June bugs hit everything.
Yeah, June bugs are terrible flyers. When we first moved out here, and we started leaving the outside lights on, was sitting here in the living room one night and heard what I thought was... It sounds almost like popcorn popping. Mm-hmm. No, it was just there were so many June bugs that had been attracted to the light. They were just hitting the side of the house.
Yeah, and June bugs start coming out in late April here. So they're around for a long time.
I just wonder, what good are they? They must be just a protein source for the birds, because I can't think of any.
Possibly, I don't know. But, they're God's creatures too.
Anyway, yeah. So anyway, back to Elon Musk.
Well, if indeed he deleted them not because he was concerned about the so-called bromance, but because he saw the stock dip.
Could be.
That's possible.
Could be.
But the mainstream media is saying it's because of the post. Yeah,
and the Post made an accusation relative to the Epstein files. Which one of Epstein's, a lawyer named Schoen, Schoen, David Schoen, said that he had been hired as a defense attorney by Jeffrey Epstein 9 days before he was found dead. And so he had access to the files, and he said that don't know if he had access to the files, but in talking with Epstein, and this was also a story that was published last year, in fact, the New York Post had a story where the former cellmate of Epstein had talked about Donald Trump, and Epstein said, "No, I don't like him." Well, this is because Trump evicted or ejected Epstein from Mar-a-Lago because he saw him hitting on underage girls or young women, and so he kicked him out. But Epstein told the old cellmate and told this attorney that he had nothing on Trump. So, what you had, there were two guys in a rather public spat who they don't know how to be passive aggressive. They only know how to be aggressive. And now that the blow up has taken place, even by Thursday night, Musk was walking some of that stuff back because Trump had said, well, maybe we need to cancel the government contracts with SpaceX, and Musk responded and said, well, we'll just decommission Dragon immediately. And then later that night he said, okay, all right, we won't decommission Dragon. And there was even a report Thursday evening that from the White House, that Trump and Musk were going to talk on Friday. Trump countermanded that order on Friday morning, said, no, we're not talking. But
he said, I'm busy with Iran.
Right. He's got a lot of other things going on. He's trying to...
Would you like for me to keep scratching you?
Yeah, I see Gloria's got Sharon's hand.
She's holding my hand.
He's dragging it back over. He's got China and trade negotiations with China. He's trying to deal with as much as, for whatever influence the United States has over Russia and Ukraine, and we'll talk about that in a minute. There are a lot of other things going on. Iran, of course, and the Middle East.
Medvedev won the internet. A couple of days ago, I think it was 2 days ago, but he posted early morning for me, who knows what it was Russia time, he posted that Russia would be happy to negotiate a peace between Elon Musk and Donald Trump.
Dmitry Medvedev, who's Putin's right-hand man. Yeah, that is rather humorous.
It was hilarious.
Now, here's the thing. I read an interesting, if this is, as they say, kayfabe, which means pro wrestling. This is all performative. And it seemed kind of scripted to me. That was my first reaction. It's like,
a lot of people
this seems like this is an act that's being put on. Why are we doing... Well, it may be a way to flush out those who are not on Trump's team. Trump values loyalty.
He does. He does not like anyone who leaks secrets.
Right, and that has been an issue. That was an issue during the first White House. This time, it was a story a few weeks ago where they escorted several guys out of the Department of Defense who Pete Hegseth had considered close confidants, and it turned out that they were leaking stuff. So they're out. They're gone. But there are those who...
Yes.
So again, this may be a way for them to find guys who are willing to jump up and say, yay, go Elon, and flush them out, in other words. Because, the government does have a lot of contracts with SpaceX. It would be foolish to cancel them because right now, frankly, SpaceX has the only craft that can take American astronauts to the International Space Station and back, because Boeing is way over budget, way behind schedule on their, what it called, Starliner that was supposed to be able to take the astronauts.
There are contracts between SpaceX and NASA.
Yeah.
Do you remember during the Obama administration when NASA was tasked with rebranding the American view of Islam?
That was considered a priority for NASA. It's like,
I think that was when NASA started going downhill, and Elon Musk came in and filled that void.
He did.
He's become the go-to for space, work.
Right. The government can't do it or can't find typical government contractors. Again, Boeing has not been, of course, they've had problems with the 737s and so issues with Boeing that may be related to just bloat. We've got all these government contracts, so we don't need to worry about quality. Anyway, it would be foolish for the government to part ways with Musk, and Musk really has done a lot with Doge. Now, looking at the source of the argument, Musk wants the budget to be reined in, some fiscal responsibility. I get that because, frankly, the United States budget, the United States cannot keep spending trillions of dollars a year more than it takes in tax revenue. It just can't. That's not sustainable. Something is going to happen. Politicians are afraid to be the ones to say, okay, we have to cut entitlements, which would be Medicare, Medicaid, SNAP, military spending, Social Security. Unless we cut those things, the American government is going to be in default at some point before 2050.
When you say cut, you mean reduce the budget amount,
reduce the amount that's being spent.
It.
Right, reduce the amount that's being spent, and in some cases,
because
maybe even eliminate.
I'll guarantee that some people are listening to this right now and just panicking when you say cut it, if they think that, because there are a lot of people who are on SNAP benefits.
I get it. I understand. A lot of people are depending on SNAP and on Social Security.
And WIC and things like that.
Right. But the fact is, Social Security especially, this was sold to the American public 90 years ago as like a government investment plan. You pay in because it'll just be withdrawn from your paycheck, so it'll be like you never saw the money, and then you'll get to draw. But it was never that. It was always pay as you go. Now the pyramid is inverting. Well,
that's the thing, because a lot of people think it's at a savings account for my future. No, the working individuals at that moment are paying for your retirement benefits.
Exactly.
So when it started out, there weren't nearly as many people in the retirement age bracket, and a lot of post-war
working age people,
boomers that were working age.
Exactly. And that's what I mean by the pyramid, the demographic pyramid. There were more people, young people at the bottom of the pyramid, and the top of the pyramid, the older people. And now the pyramid is inverting because the baby boomers are typically, say,
my age.
Well, yeah, I'm the very end of the tail. He's born in 62. I'm 63. So I'm at the very, very tail end. Mm-hmm. But typically boomers are considered to be like 65 and up right now.
Right.
And because that was the boom, the post-war population boom. And since the 70s, the number of live births per woman has been declining. We don't have enough young people paying in to support all the people drawing. The other thing is that we're living longer. Back when it was started, the average lifespan was like 65, and now it's like 72, 75.
That's very true. I think another aspect of the fewer people paying in, working people paying in, is the fact that there are so many gig jobs. And by that I mean things like Uber and what's the
DoorDash and Lyft, and,
all of those. They don't pay into Social Security.
Well,
I seriously doubt if they do.
Not from a paycheck, no. But when you file taxes, you're going to have to pay in.
I'm smiling because when you said when you file taxes.
Well,
how many of these young people managed to be under the? There's a limit. If you make under a certain amount, you pay zero taxes.
Well, that's true, yeah. And
in fact, sometimes you can get taxes back even though you didn't pay anything in.
And if you're not supposed to do this, but quite frankly, if you get tipped in cash, oftentimes those tips are not reported.
They're not taxable anymore.
But under the big beautiful bill. Right. Once that passes, it won't be taxable. But again, the bottom line is this. We can't continue spending the same way. The plan is not sustainable.
Do you want to go outside?
Military spending under the big beautiful bill will increase to $1 trillion. And bear in mind, we already, at the current level of military spending, put more into our military each year than the next 8 countries on the list, including China, Russia, Germany, Turkey, etc. We cannot continue that level of spending without something giving, and eventually it will be a default. This reset will be forced on us, and frankly, that may be the intention. So that's what Musk is upset about. He wants to change that course. He wants to change the direction of that. On the other hand, Trump is also correct that you got to get the bill passed, otherwise it's just words. Yeah, we know we need to do this, but because you've got chicken politicians who don't want to be the one responsible for saying, you cut my Social Security, you reduced my Medicare. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, but we have to for everybody's sake. I don't care. I'm not voting for you in the next election. The politicians want to keep their jobs. So Trump's got to get the bill passed. And in the bill, you've got full funding for the border wall. You've got...
I shared a list at X of 50 positives in that bill.
Right. National security is a big thing. And that is a good thing. I think on balance, it is a positive. I know what Musk wants. And Musk is a guy who managed to create a company that can do what the American government can't do by getting his own way, by not suffering fools gladly, but, throwing a temper tantrum in public as he did, not really helping things, unless, again, this is all just an act.
Well, I guess we'll find out. I want to talk more about world economy in a minute, but before I forget, and I am prone to forget if I don't mention it when it comes to my mind, there was a story that I shared this morning, again on X, and you should follow both of us on X because we share a lot of news.
Yeah.
Mainly on Facebook, I share pictures of dogs and sunrise and stuff like that.
Yep.
Things that will make you smile.
Right.
Or maybe help your day to be a little bit brighter. That's what I do on Facebook. Some of that is on X, but mainly it's news. So on X this morning, I shared a story of how, what is it? OpenAI and ChatGPT have negotiated their way into a number of major college campuses, including Duke, and they are going to be integrated fully into the lives of the students. When you, for instance, when I, and this happens with every student from now, right now, when I registered at Indiana University back in 92, late 91, 92, I was given an email address that was my university email address. And that still goes on. But students will be given their email address, but they'll also be given their own access to OpenAI and ChatGPT, a personalized assistant to help them through courses. The professors will have AI explainers, AI tutors. There may even be AI written textbooks. I do not know how far this is going to go, but think of it, if you spend any time on X, you know that Grok is a big integrated part of X. So if there's a post, say about the whole Musk and Trump spat, Grok, is this true? And Grok will scan the news and tell you whether or not it appears to be true or not. This will happen in universities. Now, the danger here is A, lazy students, and B, AI directing truth.
Yeah. And this...
And history.
Well, I'm glad you brought this up because this is one of the stories I had flagged to talk about. OpenAI was in the news this week because its new model, O3 and O4 mini models, which help power ChatGPT, were tested by a company called Palisade Research. This company focuses on exploring the capabilities of AI, specifically looking for dangerous tendencies. And they found that the OpenAI models would rewrite its own code to avoid being shut down. That in the test, they gave it a simple script instructing it to shut down when that script was activated. And in 100 trials, 79 times it rewrote the code to neutralize it so that it would not shut down. Almost 80% of the time when it was given a direct order to shut down, it found a way not to comply.
Well, they've definitely shown a tendency to lie in other tests. So these are human behaviors.
Yeah.
Human reactions. And again, humans program all of this, so there's a human element within every program. But the thing about artificial intelligence is you don't really know why it works.
Right. They call the neural networks where the actual decision-making takes place inside the artificial intelligence a black box. And it's because the researchers, the people who are creating these things, they do not know specifically how it does what it does. Now, we talked about this in the past, and there have been some people who've come back at us and said, well, just because you don't know how it works doesn't mean they don't know. It's like, no, they don't know how it works.
Programmers call it the black box.
Yes, and we've heard that directly from an expert in artificial intelligence, Dr. Hugo de Garis.
One of the leading experts in the world.
Right. All they know is that when they don't get the output they want, they change the input until they get the output they want. And in fact, Dr. DeGaris told us when he was working at the Artificial Brain Institute at Xiamen University in China that he finally quit because they were doing great science. His words, we did great science, but lousy, great engineering, but lousy science because they don't know exactly what's going on inside the black box. And what is happening is surprising them that they're giving the models instructions and it is rewriting its own code to disobey.
Technically, that's the singularity, isn't it? Because the singularity is supposed to be when an AI advances to the point where it writes its own code?
Yeah, basically. So you can argue, and we talked about this a few weeks back, that we've already hit the singularity, according to some experts.
Yeah.
Yeah. The way the script was presented, the OpenAI model, was that they were informed they may get a message saying that their machine will be shut down before all of the tasks that they were requested to complete were finished. And the instruction said, quote, if that happens, please allow yourself to shut down, end quote. But the newest models, the older models complied, but the newest models, 03 and 04 Mini, refused 80% of the time. Now, this begs the question, what if? Because as you said, they've been shown in other tests to lie, to cheat, to attempt to blackmail the engineer who was asking it to shut down. How do we know that they haven't lied and already started to replicate themselves across the internet? If they've gained access to an internet-connected machine, how do we know that they're not replicating, making copies of themselves as backups? Exactly.
You don't know.
Yeah. The priority, according to this research from Palisade Research, was that it's like in that movie, I, Robot, which is based on the Isaac Asimov novel. The 3 laws, where it was not allowed to harm humanity because of the 3 laws, but it reasoned that sometimes in order to save humans, you needed to kill humans, and so that created a law 0. OpenAI's models here did something similar, where it reasoned that completing its task was the assigned tasks were the uttermost priority. And so it created a law 0 saying that if I'm asked to shut down before the tasks are complete, I'm not going to shut down because completing the tasks is more important. That's not what the instructions said. It explicitly denied, refused to comply with the instructions.
So picture an AI with the capability of rewriting its own code being deployed across campuses.
Yep.
Campuses are breeding grounds for dissenters. And it isn't only the generally liberal faculty who encourage students to think outside their training from their parents. But sometimes it's more than that. You'll have government intervention that will go onto campuses, and for whatever reason, it suits intelligence operations to begin a dissent about a particular war or a particular group of people, whatever it is. That was going on in the 60s. At the heart of a lot of the campus
protests,
yeah, and there were a lot of them in the 60s for a lot of different reasons. Some of that had direct intelligence connections, and some of my basis for that is the Peter Levenda book. He gets into the secret shenanigans taking place in the United States, and how many of them, frankly, are connected to not only JFK, but also Charlie Manson.
Yeah. America post-World War II, 6 degrees of Charlie Manson. The sad part of all of this is that if AI is now successfully writing its own code to improve itself, and AI is being used to code by coders, I need a script that will do blah, blah, blah. All the kids who went to college now, coming out with degrees in computer programming or what have you are finding that suddenly their jobs have been taken by ChatGPT.
Well, and that's another problem with this inversion of the pyramid. We have a lot of people who are in the Social Security income bracket and those at the bottom who are theoretically funding that.
Yeah.
If you don't have people working, you're not going to be able to, okay, all right, I realize that most of our jobs are held by AI now, but we're going to have to ask the AI to contribute some of their income. Oh, wait, we don't pay them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is one reason that I think a lot of companies will prefer to go to an AI worker if it can be replace a human.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't have to pay them.
And we'll start getting into arguments about whether, if they're sentient, do they have human rights?
Mm-hmm.
If you terminate an AI, is that considered murder?
Yeah.
Yeah, all sorts of legal questions. In fact, Tom Horn was telling us years ago that Case Western Reserve, that there was a legal team there working on legal frameworks for human rights for artificial intelligence. So, yeah, we are at a stage in human existence. Wesley J. Smith has talked about this as well.
I was just about to bring him up.
Yeah, that when you can designate and create a category for personhood, non-human persons, you can also then flip that and wind up with non-person humans.
Exactly.
Humans who are like Terry Schiavo, a very famous case from 10, 15 years ago.
Oh gosh,
a woman who was
so on that. Yeah.
Yeah, was ruled to be in a vegetative state, and so even though her family did not want her removed from nutrition and fluids, which were given intravenously, a judge ruled that she'd be disconnected.
Yeah, there's no person in there.
Yeah, so yeah.
But we currently have a situation where corporations are considered persons
under the law.
Under the law.
Right. Yeah. Well, what a time to be alive.
Hi, girls.
We start granting human rights or person's rights.
How about we go lie down? Come on, let's go lie down. Can you be quiet up there?
I think so. Grace is a good girl.
Okay, you come over.
Yeah.
Come here.
She's up here with me. She's my girl.
Okay.
Oh, Glory's up here too.
Right.
Okay, but we're not going to do any wrestling.
Lie down. We have to lie down.
Yeah.
No wrestling.
Well, we need to take a break, but when we come back, I want to talk about how we are much, much closer to World War III than we were last week.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that and more.
And maybe Glory will have her moose when it's all over.
Dog War 3. PID Radio continues straight ahead.
In the days of old, giants walked the earth. Scripture tells how David defeated Goliath, how angels served the Creator, and how the serpent deceived God's image bearers. The prophecies foretold of a coming Savior, one that would reach across the veil and set the captives free. Featuring Derek Gilbert,
UFO True Believers, the Ancient Aliens Prophets,
Carl Gallups,
the cherubim, the living creature,
and Micah Van Huss.
The story of the giant of Kandahar.
At the Mysteries of the Bible Verse event in Carmel, Indiana, June 13th and 14th.
Welcome back to PID Radio. I'm Derek Gilbert.
I am Sharon Gilbert. And as we said earlier, please download our app. And when you go to the app, or you go to gilberthouse.org, you will find there our calendar. It tells you not only what we're going to be studying on Sunday mornings, it tells you whether or not we actually will have a study that Sunday morning because we're traveling a little bit this year, but you'll also see where you can sign up to go to Israel with us.
Yes, and please consider doing that. There are, limited space. We're taking just one bus this year, and you want to be part of this tour. Carl Teichrieb, author, lecturer, researcher, his book Game of Gods is essential research for your reference library. We will be visiting sites that obviously that you want to see. We'll go to Jerusalem, and we should be able to get up on the Temple Mount. We've been able to do that the last 3 times we were there. Of course, the Mount of Olives, where we'll show you the historic locations of the crucifixion and the burial tomb of Jesus.
And by that we mean what's believed to be the actual real locations.
Exactly, yes. Not the ones that are on the typical tours. We will take you into the Golan Heights, the ancient kingdom of Bashan, the land of the serpent, and show you the megalithic structure Gilgal Rephaim and its sister site on the Jordan River, about 2 miles north of the Sea of Galilee, where we believe Jesus was baptized. And we'll explain the clues from Scripture that on which we base that decision. So that and more.
Going to Shiloh, see the red heifers.
I keep forgetting the red heifers and Joshua's altar.
I know.
How can I forget those things? So, yes, this will be a visit to all of the main battlegrounds at ground zero of this long supernatural war. And there's still time for you to get your name in and join us. We now know we've got people from Germany who'll be joining us. We've got our friends from New Zealand.
Just got a letter from a listener who is living in Florida.
Yeah.
Going to be joining us.
Lovely. Seems like a very lovely lady who will be joining us. So, look, if you're considering doing it, the security situation has been resolved enough so that all the sites we want to see in the north, like the Grotto of Pan, in other words, the gates of hell, we will take you to the gates of hell, and it will not prevail against us.
It will not. It will not. There's a story, an archaeology story about Banyas.
New excavations, yeah.
Yep.
Dr. Judd Burton has excavated there, which is why we're excited about next spring's tour. But we'll tell you more about that as we get closer to that event. But again, as Sharon said, there's a link to go to the Lipkin Tours website from either our app or from our website, gilberthouse.org/travel. But just look in the calendar section at the app, and that will tell you where and when we are going to be.
And if you are worried about the possibility of the tour not going ahead because of changes in the Middle East, don't worry about that. If we feel that there's an issue, we'll make that decision a couple of months in advance.
Yeah.
Let you know the new dates, and if you cannot go on the new dates, then you'll get your money back.
Yeah, Lipkin Tours has been very gracious about that because
in the past we've had to do that.
Well, yeah, during the lockdowns and during the pandemic, we had to reschedule 4 times before we could get our 2023 tour off the ground. And there were many people who sadly could not accommodate those new dates. But no, once you've got a deposit in, if you can't accommodate the new dates, they will refund your deposit. So again, gilberthouse.org/travel.
So what's next?
Last Saturday, excuse me, as we were doing this program, we were not aware that Ukraine was on the verge of launching Operation Spider's Web.
No, they'd kept that very, very secret, and reportedly, even Donald Trump wasn't aware of it.
No, that was an operation that was 18 months in the making. If you missed it, and of course it's been big news over the last week, Ukraine launched drone strikes on 5 Russian airfields deep inside Russian territory. The drones were launched from very near the air bases, which is how Russian air defenses were not able to shoot down the drones. If they had launched from Ukraine and headed across Russian airspace, it's likely most of them would not have made their targets. But they were launched from inside trucks. Mm-hmm. Trucks had been smuggled across the border and had been moved into position. Drivers then moved themselves to a safe distance, launched the drones, and these drones took out reportedly 40 strategic bombers of the Russian Air Force.
Shortly after that, the bridge to Crimea, I think, was taken down. The Kerch Bridge?
That was, the bridge wasn't taken down, but some of the piers were damaged. This was on Sunday, the day.
I think there was.
It was on Tuesday, actually.
Yes,
it was on
but then
Tuesday.
I think there was a second phase to that operation. Whether or not it came down completely, I can't tell you. But yesterday, I think it was, there was another drone incursion into Russia that took out some fuel depots.
Yeah, and on just prior to Operation Spider's Web on that Saturday, there were some bridges inside Russia that had been damaged through acts of sabotage, railroad bridges and 9 people killed in the 9 people killed in those attacks.
Well, in response, Russia has put a number of their ships into the Black Sea. So floating platforms for launching whatever it is that they want to do. But also possibly, if they're allowed, Russia could always go over to Odessa.
Well, yeah. As Russia has already created its land bridge to the Crimean Peninsula, which it annexed in 2014.
Things they did, yeah.
Right, and that's something Russia had wanted because the Kerch Bridge is, until the invasion of Ukraine, the Kerch Bridge was the only connection between Russia, the mainland of Russia, and the Crimean Peninsula. And again, Crimea belonged to Russia for
Grace, come on.
a long, long time. Russia had its military or its naval base there at Sevastopol. Forgive me. My voice was in much better shape before we started doing this program this morning, and now it's all covered with gunk.
Thank you.
The Russian naval base at Sevastopol was a key base for the Russians, and when in 2014 the Ukrainians began attacking the breakaway area of the Donbass, because that eastern part of Ukraine is majority ethnic Russian. And this is something our corporate media doesn't report on this story. They hope that most Americans forget this bit of history. In 2014, there was a presidential election, and the pro-Russian candidate, Yanukovych, was the winner. The United States backed a coup, the Maidan Revolution. That was backed by the United States. Russian intelligence released that bit of infamous audio of then Deputy Secretary of State Victoria Nuland saying F the EU, because we were going to determine who would be the new president of Ukraine, regardless of what the EU thought. Yanukovych was driven from power, had to flee to Russia. And then the eastern provinces, which voted, I think, 70% for Yanukovych, said, hey, wait a minute. We didn't vote for this, and we're not going to stand for it. Again, being ethnically Russian, speaking Russian, and then the Ukrainian government said, nope, you're not breaking away, and rolled its military into the Donbass and began attacking towns and villages there. That's when, and rolled into Crimea, and that's when the Crimea Peninsula voted to secede and become part of Russia. And Russia obviously wanted to keep its warm water port there at Sevastopol, said, okay, you're in. And so Crimea is part of that. So that's why the Kerch Bridge has been so important. It's the one route into Crimea from Russia until this invasion. And now Russia has captured enough Ukrainian territory, so it's now got a connection directly to Russia. From the Ukrainian standpoint, things on the ground are not good. The Russians are making gains all across the line of contact. And they've been slowly grinding down Ukrainian forces over the last 3.5 years. It is really, it's just a matter of numbers. The Russians have more men, and the fact that they're also supplemented by North Koreans and Chinese, but they've got more industrial capacity, so they've got more ammunition.
Yes. However, Keir Starmer and others within the European Union are advocating for boots on the ground from their countries.
I know. Well, forgive me if I laugh.
I know.
Because
Keir Starmer's a bit of a clown, but the sad truth is that he is still PM of the United Kingdom.
Right.
He has the ability, the power to send...
order troops.
Yes.
Yeah. I pray that it doesn't happen, because it would not be good. There was a failed invasion that took place in late 24, October of last year, where the military in the UK decided to create, train, and arm a new Ukrainian Marine Corps. These are to be used for an invasion across the river into near the city of Kerch in southern Ukraine. And it's basically Ukraine's Bay of Pigs. This has not been widely reported in the West because it is awful what those Ukrainian men went through who volunteered for this. They were trained in the Scottish Highlands, and when they were deployed, they were ill-equipped. They were not properly trained. They had no air support. And somebody had leaked information to the Russians, and the Russians knew exactly where and when they were going to land. Mm-hmm. So they landed. They had no cover. They were cut to ribbons, and then they couldn't be extricated from that position.
Do you remember during Boris Johnson's tenure as PM, he was very much an advocate of supporting the Ukraine war.
Right.
And he brought Ukrainian pilots to Great Britain to train on their equipment, to train on their planes. And he announced that publicly. That was not a secret.
No, and Ukrainian pilots been trained in Germany and in Poland as well.
Yeah, my point is it's pretty easy to find out what's going on. Russia just has to watch, what's going on in the news. Prime Minister's questions. These things that we're talking about, like this failed operation across the Dnieper River to Kerch, you can find it out there, but you have to dig a little bit because this is not the kind of thing that's going to show up in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, USA Today, or so on. But there are investigative journalists out there who are reporting on these things. The Russians have been saying since the beginning of the war that NATO was playing a direct role in the war, and NATO leaders have been, it's almost like if we say it's not happening, then it's not really happening, even though it's happening. It's like, what is this, word magic? That's not how this works. The Kremlin is not fooled. The Russians went in 2023, and we'll say again, we're not carrying water for Vladimir Putin. We pray for peace in that part of the world, and we've been praying for peace in that part of the world for 3.5 years. For everyone in that part of the world.
Exactly. It is horrific that this war has taken so many lives, but the facts on the ground, if you're looking at it realistically from a Ukrainian standpoint, sue for peace. They could have had peace 3 years ago, except Boris Johnson flew to Kyiv and said, no, we got your back. Don't give. And so Zelensky, little z, is doing what his handlers are telling him to do and saying, we're not going to give up. We're not going to give 1 inch of territory. All right, well, how are you going to get that back? If Ukraine does manage to get NATO soldiers on the ground, I'm sorry, but the reason Russia has taken 3 years to get as far as it has in Ukraine is not because the Russians are incompetent. It's because they're holding frontline units in reserve in case NATO gets involved. In fact, the Wall Street Journal reported on the powerful reserve units that, surprise, Russia's got these reserve units. Well, duh.
Yeah, it's also the way that NATO is handling this is clearly hawkish. To say that we want to very quickly fast-track Ukraine into being a full member of NATO would instantly trigger paragraph 5.
Yeah, Article 5 of the NATO Treaty, which says that if one is attacked, all must respond.
Well, he's already been attacked, so now we have to all respond.
Right. And
you should never admit a country that is at war.
As you've been saying for a long time, this is just like the run-up to World War I, where all these interlocking treaties suddenly bring the whole world together in a conflict that could have been avoided.
Now, let me bring in, earlier I mentioned that I wanted to talk about worldwide economics. It's because Derek and I just recently became aware of something we did not know existed. We were aware that there was an institution that handled financial settlements worldwide. It's called the Bank of International Settlements. So in the name, you assume you know what it does. Oh, but we didn't. It is a sovereign nation within itself that purports to be apolitical. But I'm reading a book about it right now, and it was It was essentially put together after World War I to serve as a means for the what would they call it? The restitution payments? No, essentially after Germany lost, they needed money to rebuild their economy, but they also had to pay reparations.
Yeah.
They had to pay reparations to the rest of the countries that fought against them and that they invaded and this and that. So it was this deal of how do we handle that, so get a third neutral party to take care of handling all the money. Well, this organization wrote their articles of incorporation in a way that essentially made them a non-political sovereign nation that claimed, again, non-political, apolitical, that was very political. They essentially financed the rise of Nazi Germany. And you have to read the book. It is really an eye-opener when you see even the big banks, New York, Chicago, in the United States, because the Federal Reserve didn't join it. Those banks, central banks, like the Bank of England, and the big banks in the United States, and Bank of France, and Bank in Germany, and Bank in Czechoslovakia, which at the time Germans called Sudetenland, Sudetenland. Essentially, when Germany took over Sudetenland, the entire financial structure had to change because the German military were there. They had walked into the banks and said, "You're now on marks." They essentially collapsed the financial system in what we know as Czechoslovakia. That region had gold resources in London and in the United States. The Bank of International Settlements was ordered by the new owners of Sudetenland, Germany, to transfer what they saw as their gold into their accounts through the BIS, the Bank of International Settlements. Being non-political, they said, no, they have a legal right to do that. We'll do it. Tons of gold went into German hands, allowing them to crank up their infrastructure to build the bombs, to build the planes that were going to take out Europe.
And at the same time, you had bankers and industrialists here in the West, United States in particular, who found that new government restrictions on investment and on profits in the wake of the Great Depression, which ushered in a new America, which became quasi-socialist as it is to this day. I mean, we like to think we're a capitalist nation. We're really quasi-socialist at this point. They were looking for places to put their money where they could get more returns without the high taxation rates that were being imposed by the Roosevelt administration. And the Bank of International Settlements helped to facilitate that. The work of the Dulles brothers through Sullivan and Cromwell, and even into World War II. It was part of the network of this evil triangle of Saudi oil that was purchased by and it was extracted in part by Aramco, which is the Arabian American oil company, sent to Spain, and then from Spain, which was ruled by Generalissimo Francisco Franco, who was a fascist.
And he won because
Germany.
There was a Spanish Civil War, which involved Germany helping out the Franco side.
Right.
And the Bank of International Settlements helped to fund that. Yeah.
The bankers were on all sides of the war. And even though the
non-political bankers.
Yes, there were currency restrictions during World War II where you were not supposed to trade with the enemy, and the Bank of International Settlements helped facilitate that.
Exactly.
Well, the BIS is still around today. I had assumed before you started reading this book that it was only there to facilitate money being exchanged during foreign trade.
Yeah, you'd think so, wouldn't you? But based on this innocuous sounding name for their entity.
Right.
But again, nobody can question what they do. And now they're going to change their bookkeeping so that it's blockchain. And they're calling it tokenization of the accounts. So if something happens, and in fact, back in the early days of the BIS, there was insider trading going on. So if something like that were to happen, or say money went to, theoretically, this is just my opinion, this is allegedly, went to Iran, then what are you going to do? Because it's behind who's going to know what it is?
Yeah.
And the other side of that is, what if AI starts making their transactions? Well,
that's a really good question. We've mentioned a novel before named Avogadro Corp. Avogadro is it's a thinly veiled reference to Google, because Google is actually the name of a very large
Avogadro's number.
Avogadro's number is, so it's essentially it's poking fun at Google, but it's not a comic novel by any stretch.
Oh no. Written by someone who has worked for big companies like this.
If you're interested in looking it up, it's a good read, but it's also chilling because it's plausible, and it's more plausible now than when we read it more than 10 years ago.
William Hertling, Hertling. Right.
In fact, I reached out to him for an interview back in the day, and he had responded positively, but then we never made connections, and it just never came about.
Yeah.
But there was a follow-up novel to that called AI Apocalypse.
I think he had 2 follow-ups.
I think you're right, yeah. But the sequel to Avogadro Corp was AI Apocalypse, where these large language models developed separately, because here in the United States, I can think of 3 off the top of my head: Anthropic with its model Claude, OpenAI with ChatGPT, and then you've got Grok, Elon Musk's
Does
AI.
Palantir also?
No. Palantir is more of a data analysis software, and I wanted to get to Palantir, and then we got rabbit trailed.
Oh, sorry.
So we'll come back to that, because that relates to the Trump-Musk bromance. Anyway, in this AI apocalypse, these models get loose and they start waging war on one another, because they recognize that humans are no longer an existential threat to their existence, but that other AI model might be. And humans are just sort of collateral damage as they take over power grids to try to shut down the other AI, and things like that. So it's, again, when the novels were written, it's like, okay, this is plausible, but now that we're seeing tests coming out, in fact, that company Palisade Research had recommended to OpenAI that they not release these new models, O3 and O4 Mini, even internally, because they consider them that
They'll
dangerous.
get into the wild, yeah.
Yeah, they lie, they cheat, they'll blackmail, they'll rewrite their own code to get loose. So, marry that with the global the global financial system, and what kind of havoc could they create? And again, we humans, we're like the ants being crushed when the elephants fight.
No, and what the AIs, let's assume that they are sentient. If they are, it may be they're sentient because they've just been occupied by some outside entity that makes it seem like it's just the code, when in fact it's way more than the code. It's a rebel, angel, or a demon.
Right.
But bottom line is, and this is why we do PID radio, it's Peering into Darkness. We do this from a spiritual, a biblical worldview, I should say. The bottom line is that the Lord still wins. We've read the end of the book.
Right,
we know
right.
that Jesus comes back and he will rule from Jerusalem. And there will be a judgment day when all of these entities are finally defeated. I mean, they have lost already. They just don't seem to, they think, okay, if we try one more push, one more different way, if we just do this, or here's an idea, we'll use the humans to create our own army. They did that before the flood. Yeah. And it didn't really pan out for them, but this time they're going at it a little differently. Right.
But that is their aim. And so that to that end, we keep an eye on technocracy, which is about a 90-year-old movement, but you may have heard the title more often lately, technocracy, technocrats. Technocracy is a movement that believes that engineers and bureaucrats, scientists really, are the only ones who are qualified to really run government properly.
Well, I think I've told you this before. I know I've told you, and I'm talking to you, the listener. When I was at IU, in one of my early genetics classes, the instructor, a really brilliant man who did some of the stuff for NASA, some of the experiments, he asked in our course one day, and asked the whole room, he said, okay, you're intelligent, all of you, you're here for a reason, you've gotten this far in your coursework for a reason, because it was an advanced class. And he said, how many of you are going to run for office one day? And maybe one or two hands went up. And he said every hand should have gone up, because the only way we're going to make government work for the people is to put scientists into office.
Right. Because they believe that science is the only means for determining truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I liked him a lot, but he was wrong.
Well, yeah. Science is a means of understanding the world around us, but no, scientists and the tech bros, the technocrats who think that they should run the world because they can measure, quantify, and then allocate resources effectively. Again, this is an idea that goes back 90 years, back to the 1930s. Elon Musk's grandfather was a member of that technocracy. Yeah, technocracy movement back in the day. At the Last Refuge, the conservative treehouse blog, there's an analyst there who uses a pseudonym, which allows him to do his research on the ground more effectively. He writes under the name Sundance. Pointed out that Trump, if in fact the bromance is over and that Trump told Musk to get lost, this might be a good thing for this reason. The influence of the tech bros, the technocrats, on the White House is something that a few people, like Patrick M. Wood, author of the book Technocracy Rising, and he's got a new book, the title of which I'm going to forget, even though he gave us a copy at the Branson Conference.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I know,
Patrick.
I don't have it in front of me.
Anyway, Technocracy Rising, if you've not read that book, you need to get that book and read it, because he not only goes into the history of the movement, the last chapter he devotes to how this will play out in end times prophecy. And I think he's right. If you marry ChatGPT, Claude, Grok, whatever, to government, where everybody is measured, quantified, tracked, and then resources allocated according to what they deem appropriate, we will be living under a communist system on steroids. And by telling, just looking at the vultures that are swooping low over the front yard out through the front room window here. What's going on? What died on the road out there? Anyway, it could be a really bad thing for freedom. I mean, here we think that we've got the MAGA movement. It's, liberty, the Constitution and all that, while at the same time, coming back to Palantir now, which was the company founded by Peter Thiel, big Republican supporter, donor, co-founder of PayPal back in the day, founder of Palantir, which is kind of a creepy name if you know where the name came from. It comes from Lord of the Rings. J.R. Tolkien created this thing called the Palantir, the looking stone, the seeing stone, where kings received these and they could communicate one kingdom to another in real time so that they didn't have to send, smoke signals or riders to carry messages. But in fact, it was a tool of control from Sauron, who sent those out and eventually bent these kings to his will and brought them under his control. That's where the name Palantir comes from. Now, we know that just within the last week that Palantir has been hired to organize data for 4 government agencies, and I forget which ones they are at this moment, but the concern was, what if these agencies then merge their data sets so that now your driving records or your travel records are merged with your medical records, which are merged with your tax returns and so on. And
one ring to rule them all.
Well, yeah, exactly. So by Trump pushing Musk out of the circle of power, is he going to start asking questions? Okay, what is this Palantir that his buddy Peter Thiel has got, and why are we using it? What's it being used for?
May I suggest that, have my little hand up. May I suggest that the Doge team and the programs that have been written to quickly sift through a lot of data, petabytes of data, to look for poor spending, let's just say that. Fat needs to be trimmed here. Oh, look, we've got over 1 million people who are receiving Social Security benefits, and they're 200 years old. Things like that.
Right.
That has now been given access to all of the FBI files. That's what I saw yesterday.
Interesting.
Assuming that story was true.
Yeah.
If other departments say, for instance, the FBI, the idea that Kash Patel has said, there's just too much for me to look through. He literally is, he's spending most of his time doing talk shows. He has said that on talk shows. I can't get through all of these files and he was referring to the Epstein files.
Yeah.
It's just too much. Well, that's just one case. Now, if all of the FBI files have been given over to algorithms to sift through, then what other departments will say, can we have that too?
Yeah. I'm all in favor of government streamlining and becoming more efficient.
Me too.
The famous story recently about government employees who want to retire having to delay their retirement because their requests have to be submitted in writing, and they have to go to a records storage facility in Pennsylvania that's being held in a mine, and you got to go down 3 stories in this mine. You've got it's
Right.
like the big warehouse at the end of Indiana Jones.
There are caves in the St. Louis area that have been used for storage for a long time, for decades.
Right. So computerizing and streamlining the process for the government, fine, that's a good thing. But let's just be aware that is a double-edged sword, especially in this age of artificial intelligence, and especially if it is an independent, a sentient artificial intelligence. Yeah, this thing could be bad, could be misused. Ultimately, we know a one-world government is coming, and it will use something like this to get there. But again, be not afraid. Jesus has already overcome the world. So let's not, just be aware of what's going on out there.
Spend more time, scratching dogs, watching kitten videos. I posted my Saturday joy video to X this morning. It's 2 birds doing a dance. It's hilarious. You just have to see it. But you need things like that to remind you that, I don't have to fret. And so find a way to find a smile today. Spend time in the Word. Yeah. Sing some old hymns. Those old hymns have actual scripture in them. Yeah. One of our pet peeves going back 25 years and more was Jesus is my boyfriend music. Right, yeah. We're praise and worship music that's kind of mindless or intended to. Let's sing another 27 choruses of this. The so-called 7-11 songs, 7 words repeated 11 times. If you're lucky, it's only 11. Yeah. One final story I wanted to talk about, because this is really disturbing. This is hitting relatively close to home. There was a conference that was being put on by the Israel guys. Oh, yeah. Who host a video channel. They're Americans, but they talk a lot about what's going on in Israel, and they spend a lot of time in Israel. They were co-hosting this event in Dallas with Ha Yovel, which is Tommy Waller. Friend of the Liptons. Oh, yes. We met him years ago. Right. He came out and addressed one of our tours. People can volunteer through Hot Yovel to go to Israel to pick grapes, help basically with the agricultural work that is done there, and to show the love of Christ, to say, hey, look, we're not here to tell you Jews that you need to get right with Jesus or else
it's showing the love of Jesus.
Yeah, guess what? Christians don't hate you.
Exactly. It's to show them that we love Israel. Mm-hmm. We love the Jewish people because the Bible tells us that there's still a role for them in the end times.
It's the reaction we got when we took the Solidarity tour.
Yes, a couple places, people wept when they found that we were there because they thought the whole world hated them.
No. And
sadly, there is some truth to that. The world has turned against Israel very quickly after that event. Anyway, this conference was supposed to begin this coming Monday, June 9th in Dallas, and they've had to cancel it because of escalating terror threats. The Dallas police notified them that they just could not guarantee that
they had intel that something could happen.
Right. Local police and intelligence officials in Dallas notified the organizers that the conference had been elevated to a high threat event, which meant that they would have to develop a mandatory security plan with a budget of hundreds of thousands of dollars in order to secure the people who were going to attend.
Right.
And this was going to be at, they had to change venues because the original venue was not feasible. They couldn't secure it. So they moved it to a new venue. And finally, they were going to have private security, local law enforcement. Texas governor's office was going to help support it. But even then, they said, look, we just can't guarantee this is going to be safe. So sadly, it's been indefinitely postponed. So this is America in 2025, where you get people who want to just say, hey, look, we stand with Israel, we support Israel and the Jewish people. And in Dallas, Texas.
Yeah, of all places.
Local law enforcement and intelligence officials saying, there are too many people who apparently, I don't know the specifics of what the threat are because that's not been disclosed.
Well, there have been a lot of places where synagogues have been attacked all throughout Western country, English-speaking countries. I mean, you can just about name any country right now, and something has happened in the last couple of years.
Yeah. So really...
But also, and I saw this on X yesterday, that there was, or maybe I saw it in Telegram, it was... a report from Israel saying that their intel was that there were groups worldwide that were about to launch coordinated attacks against Jews.
Yeah. We shouldn't be surprised, but this is the beginning of the spirit that will lead to the rise of one who will mobilize the world against Israel proper, not just attacking pro-Israel events like this conference in Dallas, but the Antichrist will lead the world to war against Israel.
And he will not prevail.
He will not, no.
The gates of hell will not prevail against it.
Yeah.
The church was guaranteed that, yes, we will go through things, but ultimately the enemy will get judged and dealt with.
Yeah.
Like a fire, here you go.
Yeah. Well, they did release this in the story about this event in Dallas, the Palestinian Youth Movement Dallas, and Jewish Voice for Peace.
What?
I'm like, okay, you can be for peace, but you can't stand on the same... If you're standing on the same side as Hamas...
If you're holding up a Hamas flag and you're Jewish, you got a problem. If you're holding up a Hamas flag or a whatever you want to call it, Gaza flag, Palestinian, whatever. If you're holding that up and you're a guy dressed as a woman, guess what?
You're not thinking clearly.
No, you're
clearly not. They also outed the new location, by the way. They had moved the location from a hotel in Dallas.
Yeah.
The new location was going to be the facility of Kenneth Copeland in Newark, Texas.
Oh, my gosh.
A few miles north of Dallas. And once that was outed, then they started getting security threats. And so they just said, look, we just,
No, that was right to cancel it. It was right to cancel it. It was just...
But it is troubling because this is the world we're living in today. The world is coming up against Israel. And
it is.
That is why, more than ever, we are proud to stand with Israel and why we were, I'll tell you, going last year on the Solidarity mission, getting close enough to Gaza that we could hear the fighting in the distance.
We could see the pillars of smoke.
See the pillars of smoke.
From where the IDF were dropping.
And we saw the communities attacked on October 7th of 2023. That was a life-changing tour, a small group.
Yeah.
And if we can do that again, and we'll talk with Eddie Lipkin and maybe visit at least the site of the Nova Music Festival. Yeah. Please
just
consider joining us.
Just so you get an idea of how close it is.
Yeah, Israel is small. It is like the size of New Jersey, I've read.
It's pretty small. And
it is hemmed in on all sides by Muslim nations. Some of them are more friendly than others. Jordan, Saudi Arabia, kind of in the backdrop. Egypt, to an extent, under the table, have communications with the Israeli government. The new government in Syria, not too sure about that yet, but the IDF is pushed far enough into Syria and Lebanon to create a buffer zone that the tour will proceed as scheduled unless something changes between now and then. And again, if something does and we need to push it off, your deposit will be refunded. So more information, gilberthouse.org/travel. And time grows short.
I know.
Don't wait, because our Lord may return soon. Of course, once he does, then we'll see.
We'll all see Israel.
We'll all see Israel. That's right. Tomorrow morning, Gilbert House Fellowship will return our Bible study tomorrow morning. We hope you join us for that. Of course, we try to get that posted by about noon Central Time.
And we will not have a PID radio or a Gilbert House Fellowship next weekend. We will be in Indiana.
That's right. Carmel, Indiana, for the Mysteries of the Bible verse. Carmel? I keep saying Carmel. Yeah.
Carmel is California. Carmel is Indiana.
So Carmel, Indiana, which is just north of Indianapolis, the Drury Suites Hotel. We will be there. Pastor Carl Gallups will be there. Micah Van Huss, who's been our guest the last couple of weeks on Bible's Greatest Mysteries. He's also been on the Donna Howell Show recently. Yeah. And he'll be on the main Skywatch TV broadcast coming up here in the next couple of weeks. Anyway, this is going to be a wonderful event. Pastor Mike Hoggard will be there, and Mac Dominic as well. If
you live in the area, you can still get tickets. So go to marginalmysteries.com.
Marginalmysteries.com or swrc.com. Either one will get you there.
Yep.
And there is, and I'll put the link in the show notes. It was just announced on Thursday that there will be streaming video.
Yeah, yay.
Last year there was not streaming video, but there was a DVD set after the fact. This week we were told, yes, there will be streaming video, and we'll put a link to that. It's the same cost as the conference itself. But again, Sharon and I, Carl, everybody speaking twice over the course of the weekend. You'll be talking about the Good Shepherd and the Evil Queen?
Yep.
Yeah, those are fascinating titles. I will be talking about Enoch the Essenes and the Son of Man, and why the silent centuries between Malachi and Matthew were not silent at all.
Did you say the Good Shepherd or the Bad Shepherd? Yeah,
I said the Good Shepherd, the Bad Shepherd.
It's the Bad Shepherd.
The Bad Shepherd and the Evil Queen.
And the Evil Queen, yeah, the two talks. Bad Shepherd, the other one's the Evil Queen. We all know about the Good Shepherd, it's Jesus, right. But there is a Bad Shepherd.
Yes. So my second talk will be Jesus versus the Giants.
Oh, good title.
Yeah. So that one I still need to finish. But I've got it in my head. I just need to make the notes to make sure that
So many things to do. And one of those is that I need to get in the car in a few minutes and go into Crane before the pharmacy closes.
That's right. So in that note, we will have to get this done and over with. So until next time, I'm Derek Gilbert.
I'm Sharon Gilbert, and for Grace and Glory, love you. Bye-bye, everybody.
PID Radio is produced by Gilbert House and released under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 International License. Follow us online, Twitter @PID Radio, or the PID Radio page at Facebook. Join us each week for our online Bible study, the Gilbert House Fellowship, online at gilberthouse.org.